the Dallas Mavericks just got bounced from the playoffs. Luka played one of the most incredible 7-game series I think any of us have ever witnessed, dropping over 30 on average, almost averaging a triple-double, dropping over 40 multiple games. But they still faltered. They got great contributions from Finney Smith, Tim Hardaway in most of the games, and then their other shooters too played well. But Kristaps Porzingis did not quite have the series many were hoping for. So what are you guys' thoughts on the Mavericks and maybe getting another second option for Luka?
All right, I could jump in there. I think that it's just super important to get someone. And then when I think before I start, I just want to say second option to me is someone who can facilitate or like make their own offense off the dribble or in the post and not just feed or like receive a pass from Luka. Like I think a lot, as good as Finney Smith and Hardaway play, a lot of their offense is off the pass, like a catch and drive or a catch and shoot. And like you were saying, in terms of big men, I would say, well, first of all, Boban, big guy, not too court aware. I don't know if he'll ever be the type of guy who kind of kick the ball and make his own offense. Dwight Powell, good defender. So I think it really has to be Porzingis if I'm looking at this team. And I don't see him. He's 7'2", but yet the Clippers played small ball for the majority of the series, and he really couldn't do anything in the post. He still, like, the only thing he could really do was a baseline run that wasn't even really set up by him. And I would say right now their best second option is Jalen Brunson. And as underrated and as good as Jalen Brunson is, I do think they're going to need someone else who can be a little bit better, a little bit more of a playmaker, or else I see them running into a similar problem that the Portland Trailblazers have, where you have a guy like Dame Lillard, who is a beast day in, day out, playing out of his mind, and then CJ McCollum kind of there, but kind of like Porzingis, where he's not as consistent. So I think it's a big problem. I'm curious your guys' thoughts and like what they can do or like what you guys think about that.
So I actually thought you were kind of nice. You were a little nicer than what I expected. You gave Porzingis his props for the baseline drive. I thought Porzingis was terrible in this series. Porzingis at 7'2", the fact that he was out on the perimeter taking 20-footers, the fact that they had to go into zone every time he's on the court because he was such a defensive liability, the fact that he took the single worst basketball shot I've ever seen today when they had a 2-on-1 in transition, and he pulled up and took a 28-footer. And the one was Luke Kennard, not Kawhi Leonard, not Paul George, Luke Kennard. And he pulled up and he clanked a 28-footer. Yeah. I was like, oh, my God. I thought Porzingis was terrible in this series. And I think they do need to get a legit number 2 option. I'm with you. That legit number 2 option isn't a guy who scores 22 points a game. It's a guy who can legitimately create his own shot so you can rest Luka Doncic. Or you can have him run the offense and get Luka Doncic an elbow ISO. Or get Luka Doncic a touch on the low post. Because Luka Doncic is unbelievable. The only 2 things I would say that Luka Doncic maybe could improve in, and one might not be fair, and one I think is fair. One is the free throw shooting. His free throw shooting, especially for a guy that shoots from 3 as well as he did in this series, it's got to get way better. And then the other thing is, I guess maybe he could be in better conditioning. I mean, he's a fit athlete. Obviously, he's well conditioned all that. I'm not saying he's not, but just in terms of being able to, but then just play at that sustained level for 7 games, first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, because he did run out of gas in the second half of most of these games, but then he's exerting so much energy to even get him a lead in the first half. I don't even know if that's a fair ask, but they need to get him somebody. Kristaps Porzingis is getting paid $32 million a year, and this is not what you pay it for. And we were talking about this a little bit before the show. I truly believe the Dallas Mavericks actually have the right pieces to have a championship team. You have a star who's clearly capable of being the best player in a championship team in Luka Doncic. To me, if Magic Johnson and James Harden had a baby, you would get Luka Doncic with a little bit of LeBron. So I think Dorian Finney-Smith is the perfect starter on a championship team. Great defender, knocks down threes, tough as hell, competes. Tim Hardaway Jr. is the perfect number 3 option. Catch and shoot scorer, can occasionally take people off the bounce, and lights out 3-point shooter. And he shot extremely well over the course of the season. And he can give you 1 or 2 games in a series where he goes for 35 and wins you a game. Jalen Brunson is the perfect sixth man. He was, I think, second or third in the running for sixth man of the year. He's so tough. He knows how to play. He runs their offense well. Dwight Powell is an athletic young defender. I think Kleber is a nice piece that they have that comes off the bench that's versatile. All they really need is a legitimate number 2 option. And I think at this point it's just the injury. Maybe Kristaps Porzingis was still injured. Will Kristaps Porzingis ever be the same? I don't know. But his lateral mobility is gone. And watching him with Marcus Morris and Nicholas Batum on him taking turnaround 20-footers was pathetic. He had a half a foot of height advantage on those guys. So I think that they're really just one player away. And there's a lot of players like that. Like Jaylen Brown, obviously, I don't know how they could acquire Jaylen Brown. It's not a player they could acquire. But if you re-sign Hardaway and you somehow manage to put Jaylen Brown on this team with Luka Doncic, then they're a powerhouse in the West, in my opinion, for the next 5-6 years. So that would be an example of the kind of player that I think, Noel, you and I are talking about. But they need somebody because they don't want to wait. This is a player that should be winning 5 championships in his career with the Dallas Mavericks. And you cannot waste it by having him play 4 years with Kristaps Porzingis, who's not very good on offense or on defense.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think what I would compare it to was, I know you guys mentioned Dame, and I think that's a good comparison. I would say just like Cavaliers LeBron when Kyrie was injured, and you see he's taking, I would say this supporting cast is probably even better than that, because like I think Hardaway Jr. and Finney-Smith are actually really, really good, like as just like role players. Like you can't get much better than someone who just sprays from threes and plays good defense. Like you can't ask for much more if you're a playmaker. But going off that, like the way I would compare like LeBron and Doncic is like literally if they want to score, it's because the ball is in their hands and they're making something happen because no one else really can. And that's kind of what Porzingis was there for. But his offense was either, as Nolan mentioned, running the baseline or catching it in the post, and he just does like a turnaround three, or sorry, not like a turnaround mid-range. And it's like, okay, like you can't even back down like Reggie Jackson. Like he was doing that on Reggie Jackson, and Reggie Jackson was just putting his hand up and he was missing. And you need to be able to do more than that. And I do think it's a lot of it is the injuries is kind of has taken away from him, because I feel like he was a lot more athletic his first few years in the league. And, you know, that's kind of what happens when you're 7'2" and you just get injured more. You're more injury prone, but he needs to be more than just someone who's standing in the corner and shooting threes. Because even then, like Finney-Smith and Hardaway Jr. were probably shooting a higher percentage than he was. So yeah, I don't know what they can do with him. Like, I honestly think their best chance of getting rid of him would be trading him, and you might actually have to throw a pick or two, because like after what he showed, like he's not going to bang low with the bigs. His defense isn't what it was, because if you guys remember on the Knicks, he was actually he would get tons of blocks and, you know, protect the paint really well, but I don't feel like he can do that as well anymore. And that's concerning. And, you know, if you mentioned it too, Vish, like Luka's conditioning seems to falter a lot in the third and fourth quarter, and it's tough to, you know, ask of him to do what he's been doing for 4 quarters and score 20 points in a quarter, because he's done that multiple times, or, you know, 18 or whatever. But if your whole game plan is just him scoring like 16 points in a quarter and that's how you can win, you're not going to get very far. That's just the bottom line of it. And that's why I think they need to get someone who can, as you guys mentioned, like actually create a shot by themselves without him on the court. Like even someone like Chris Middleton would be just a huge get for them, because he can make his own shot. Maybe he can't facilitate great for others, but like he can at least get his own shot up. Like Porzingis can't really do that either. So it's a conundrum, and they got to do something with it. Cause I'm with you, Vish. Like I still think Luka's on his rookie deal, but when he gets paid, and if you have him and Kristaps getting paid that much, like the rest of your roster is not going to be as good. And, you know, Doncic has the chance to win multiple championships. I truly believe that after what we've seen at only age 22. It's still hard to believe that, but yeah, they got to do something.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with what both of you have been bringing up. And I think I was a little bit nice to Porzingis in my first thing, but I would say that after this series, especially, the torch of playoff P has been handed down from Paul George to now Kristaps Porzingis. I think owns it after, for lack of a better word, bumming it up this series. And I don't know. I don't think there is an exact answer of what he could do or what the Mavs could do. But if I'm Kristaps Porzingis right now, I am calling up Dirk Nowitzki and maybe, developing a post game. I mean, he has one of the – I think he's still kind of around the franchise or just getting something because he can't make up any leverage for being 7-2. And I think just even if he could have like a little bit of some post moves, that could just give him so much of a boost because I think with this last game and in general with the series, when Luka gets a little bit tired towards the end, like in this last game when the Clippers went on that big run, they just need someone to facilitate or make their own offense. And as good as I think Jalen Brunson is, I don't think he can be that guy. So I don't know what I do with the Mavs, but if I'm Kristaps Porzingis, I'm hitting up Dirk Nowitzki and maybe trying to get a post fade or something because you're still 7-2. You still have a pretty good jump shot. It's just, yeah, he just does. He looks all rigid out there. He just doesn't look fluid. He looks almost off-putting in a lot of ways.
The biggest problem too with the post is it's one thing to post up, right? Because he should be posting up like 10 times out of 10, especially when the Clippers' biggest player is probably Kawhi Leonard or Paul George, I would say. I think, or maybe Marcus Morris. But it's a 6'9".
Yeah,
it's a 6'8", 215, 230 guy. But it's so like him being in the post, right? He should post him up. The reason they couldn't go to him in the post is because if you post him in the high post, he's turning around and taking a 15-foot elbow jumper. If you post him up 8 feet from the basket, he's taking an 8-footer. He's 7'3". There's no way he should be taking, a 20-footer with Reggie Jackson on him. He should be getting him and backing him down to the paint. But he can't even back these guys down, and that's a problem. And then his defense, I think you talked about, Blake. He was such a good defender. He played better when they played in the zone. He played with active hands, but it wasn't like he was getting asked to do much. They were literally hiding him on defense. He was the person they were hiding because the Clippers got back into the series by going at him. And because of all the lower leg injuries, it looks like he's lost a lot of lateral mobility. Yeah. The Dallas Mavericks can never lose a series with Luka Doncic playing like this again. Like we're talking about Porzingis, right? They don't even need a guy like I brought up Jaylen Brown. They don't even need a guy at his level or Chris Middleton's level. They literally just need a guy who's just an above average NBA player who can create his own shot. Maybe a little more athletically gifted than a Jalen Brunson type, because their best player at 22 years old just averaged 34-9, essentially 34-9-9, shooting 40% from three. And then it's 7-game playoff series while being guarded by Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Marcus Morris, Nick Batum, Terrence Mann, like 5 guys who were all thought of as above average defenders, and Paul George and Kawhi Leonard who were elite defenders. And he did that. Like, they don't need a lot more. Like, they should never, like, I think this is like, if the Mavericks, in my opinion, if they don't do anything to get better, if they lose another series with Luka Doncic averaging 34-9-9, shooting 40% from three, he should just look to leave. Because I say that more facetiously, but the point is that it's like what they like for Luka Doncic to lose a series playing that well, to me, like that's upsetting because he played way too well for the Mavs to lose to the Clippers. Luka Doncic, if he had just a little bit of help, they win that series. And a lot of people thought the Clippers were the best team in the West this year. Tells you how good he is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't really have much more, but I think bottom line here is Mavs got to do something because Kristaps clearly does not seem to be it for them. Whether that's trading him somewhere and throwing on picks, like you may as well do it because he seems like he's not going to be able to recover from the injuries and actually be as good as he once was or the potential that he has. And it's kind of crazy to say, but that New York trade's looking like the Tim Hardaway trade now and not the Kristaps trade, which is kind of hard to believe. But yeah, Mavericks got to do something because, I mean, yeah, as you said, Vish, Luka played way too good to get bounced in the first round. That was unbelievable.